Hey.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Anarchists, workers, documented, undocumented, all of our viewers. Welcome to ACAB Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Happy Earth Market. We're presented to you by Food Not Bombs Las Vegas, NevadaCopBlock.org. It's nvcopblock.org. Be sure to check out the site for recent news. We've got a special show for you today. It's May Day, International Workers' Day today, and we've got a march here at the historic Commercial Center on Sahara in Maryland, and it starts at 5 o'clock, and we're heading down Sahara to the federal courthouse. So if you didn't know about it, now you know, and come out and join us. We've got a rock climbing wall being set up right now for the little ones.
There'll be vendors.
Yeah, what else we got
right?
going
and
on?
that's all before 5 o'clock because the march will start around that time. So if you want to do the rock wall, you want to come and visit the vendors, you want to come and see all the great stuff at Happy Earth Market, you got to get here earlier prior to that. You could come as early, I'd say it's 2 o'clock. Come on down. We'll be here. Your host for the show will be here. Come and meet us.
We're going to be climbing that wall shortly.
Yes.
And you don't want to miss that because that's the highlight of the day.
That will be fun. I have a catapult for myself just to give me a little helping hand.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm going to climb it backwards just to show off.
Yeah. I was going to cover it with Velcro and then do the Velcro suit and just attach myself to it.
I wish we thought of that. That would be good.
We got a special guest today. I don't know if you want to use an alias or your real name, but we've got King
there was
Ron.
Rusty.
Yeah, King
Rusty
Ron, Special
Yeah.
K, and Jay Lifer.
Hey, folks.
So yeah, how about a little context for May Day for those that don't know? I don't know if one of you guys want to talk about the history of May Day, where it dates back to in the U.S. and beyond that.
Kelly would be great for that, considering he's one of the longest-standing IWW members here in Vegas. Introduced a lot of us to the IWW, so I think he would be great.
Yeah, well, it's not known as much in the United States because they really discouraged May Day as a holiday in the United States. They actually went out and created Labor Day to take people's attention away from May Day. Mm-hmm. But the original May Day, it comes from when the workers, and a lot of them were anarchists, and they were agitating to get an 8-hour workday. Mm-hmm. People before that were actually working on the average 12 hours a day, and they were working actually 6 days a week. So workers basically, this is during the Industrial Revolution, were living to work. That was basically their existence. They would get up, go to work, come back and go to sleep, and then do that all over again. And you had maybe one day off if you were lucky. The other thing is child labor back then was really incredibly bad. Big Bill Haywood, who's one of the founders of IWW, actually lost an eye when he was 8 years old working in a mine, and that was not uncommon. Children, basically, as soon as they could stand up, they were put to work, and so there was huge labor issues, and there was a protest in Chicago, and it was at Haymarket Square, and that protest actually happened on May 1st, and then there was the cops came in and broke it up, and then there was a second protest, which is known as the Haymarket Affair. Some people call it a riot, and
it was a massacre, if you ask me.
Right?
Right. There's different terminology for it depending on which side you stand, and basically the cops came in to break it up again, and somebody threw a bomb into the ranks of the cops. And there's also different theories about that. Some people say it was, an anarchist. Some people say it was the cops trying to create a reason to crack down on the anarchists.
Like an agent provocateur type.
Right.
So there's differing theories and differing accounts of what exactly happened up to that point. But what happened after that is the cops just started shooting people. And I think there was 8 cops that were killed, but the thing about that is when they went back and looked at it, they were actually killed by other cops. It was one of those deals where they were just shooting wild and they hit each other. So the after that, the real aftermath of that is they did that thing you always see on TV where it's, round up the usual suspects. And they just went out and found anybody they could that was an anarchist in, the Chicago area. And the majority of the people they rounded up weren't even at this protest. But they charged who's become known as the Haymarket Martyrs, all of them with murder against the cops, even though some of them weren't even there. And they used the justification that they had incited people to riot. And
so you have a shirt with their names on it. If
Yeah.
I could, if you could take
Yeah,
that
could
off
you
for
take
us
that
so
off?
we can read it. Yeah.
yeah, we can,
Let me try to read the names here, just to give them a shout out.
Oh,
August
through the beard
Spies,
cam.
Adolf Fisher, Samuel Fielden. I can't read that. A.R. Parsons,
I tell you, people need to print
Michael
shirts
Schwab,
with the stuff on it lower.
I think you're lingering a little
George
too
Engel,
longer. Read the names. Keep your eyes on
Oscar
the names.
Neal,
Yeah, don't check out my merchandise.
and Louis Ling are the 8 May Day Massacre martyrs.
So eventually they were executed. I think one of them was not executed, but
One cheated by
yeah.
committing suicide.
one did commit suicide, and I do think one of them actually was acquitted or got a sentence of. But anyway, they were all convicted of these crimes, and after that, at some point, the mayor, or not the mayor, but the governor of Illinois actually pardoned them because it was such an outrageous trial, and it was such a. The whole trial, it's kind of reminiscent of the Sacco and Vanzetti trial, which is a little better known. But it wasn't about what they actually did or didn't do. It was about their political philosophy of being anarchists.
Like a witch hunt. Yeah.
It really was.
So a lot of them were also immigrants, and that's part of the reason why it's become a giant immigrant holiday, because that and the fact that the United States repressed it so much and went out of their way to really eliminate May Day
Yeah, we're the
in the
only
mindset of people from the United States.
Yeah, we're the only country in the world that doesn't celebrate Labor Day on May 1st. The rest of the world, that also is why immigrants celebrate it, because in their countries of origin, they celebrate International Workers' Day on May 1st. That is the real Labor Day. But because of this massacre, when they made it a federal holiday, they didn't want the people to be reminded of what the government did back then, so they purposefully scheduled Labor Day on a separate day.
That's true.
Yeah, well, it's also the in terms of the IWW, most of the people that eventually created the IWW were involved in unions before that, and were involved, if they weren't even directly there, they were involved in the actual protest of the original May Day, which was in 1886, and then the IWW was created in 1899. So there's basically the creation of the IWW was something that came about because of May Day.
And the tradition of the maypole actually predates the Haymarket Massacre. It goes back to like pagan holidays, celebrating spring, and so this is there is like the red aspect to it, and there's the green aspect of it as well, like, you know, nature, and yeah, so definitely an interesting holiday that is forgotten about in the United States. And we're here, it's the 12th annual here in Las Vegas, and we're trying to bring about that awareness and that consciousness back to America, because it's for the workers. And in light of, you know, the recent regime, the Trump regime, and all the things that they're doing with our dreamers and DACA recipients and TPS holders, trying to revoke those programs, and just how brazen ICE has become, going into, workplaces and rounding up people like the Gestapo in Nazi Germany, So we're making a stand against those types of actions, because this isn't the America that anybody wants to live in, where, people are being stopped and asked for papers like we're in Nazi Germany. We literally fought a world war over this. I would assume every American would be an anti-fascist, but here we are, where a large amount of Americans are calling for, these types of actions that I would consider fascist tactics.
Well, that's part of the unfortunate history of the United States, though, is that even during the Second World War, there was a decent amount of people that were actual fascists. There was a candidate running right before the war. After Pearl Harbor, it was kind of hard to put forward a candidate like that. So that a lot of that cooled down, but there was a huge group
there was a
of
Bund
people.
party here also. There was a large.
So
speaking of candidates, didn't somebody just get elected as a legislator that's like a white supremacist and like?
I think that guy dropped out. He didn't get
Mm.
elected. He was running. I think he dropped out. I think it was Maine, or it was one of those little tiny states with like 12 people in it up there in the Northeast.
Yeah, I forget who he was.
Yeah, that was. I remember reading that story also.
Yeah, but also the history of May Day here in Las Vegas comes from in 2006 when they had what was called a Day Without a Worker. And it was also called a Day Without an Immigrant because it was based on where they had passed a bunch of legislation that restricted immigration. And all the way across the country, they staged these, basically a general strike. And people went out and marched in the streets, and it was huge then. Even in Las Vegas, if you look on the internet, you can actually find a picture of it where the entire strip is shut down. There's people all the way across the strip on both sides, which I've never seen a march since or before even that had that kind of turnout. But that's 12 years ago is when that happened.
Yeah.
And that's, that's what's the continuing legacy of May Day here in Las Vegas really is from that day.
And well, I mean, there's been some marches. I mean, we do the May Day. There's been other rallies that have been done, and I've witnessed over the years. And the one thing that frightens me or causes me great concern is every year the tactics that the police are using are getting more and more aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
For peaceful protests, something that is guaranteed that we're allowed to do. We're allowed to voice our dissent. If you don't like something, you have a right to stand out there and say, hey, I don't like this. I think this is wrong, without fear of being shot, beaten down, kidnapped by the police and then
caged. Yeah.
And caged. I've been to peace protests where they go out of their way now to escalate problems.
Yeah, Metro's definitely good at that. Yeah.
They come and they do this with peace groups. We're not talking about people that are causing problems or abdicating any sort of violence.
Mm-hmm.
These are peace protesters that are coming out speaking for peace.
Are you speaking of NDE, Nevada Desert Experience? I know they had their Sacred Peace Walk this year, and I saw footage of them being arrested.
They arrest them. There's always been a number of arrests because as part of the protest, we say, we don't want you here, and we'll go and cross that line that they draw that says this is the base and this is, and it's always been, you made a statement, they come in, they arrest you. In recent years, they've come and they've become violent, and they've actually tried to hurt the people while they're arresting them. They're becoming super aggressive. I myself was locked in a van in the desert for hours before being brought in to the precinct here.
Well, they've also had Vera Anderson, who is
Right.
One of the nicest, most peaceful people you could ever meet.
A true voice for peace. Yeah.
And she's a poet and a musician. She was doing one of their protests last year, and they arrested her, and she has dreadlocks, and she has beads in those dreadlocks. And even though basically it's just a book and release kind of situation, it's not where they're going to keep them in jail for any amount of time. One of the booking officers decided that they had to take the beads out of her hair, and in the process they were ripping her hair out.
I read an article you wrote about that on.
Yeah, there's an article on Nevada Cop Block
Check that
about
out
it.
if you're interested in this story.
Yeah, I was.
With the video, except that the video they have is obscured by a counter that's in front of where they're at. But what you see in that video is that there's another cop taking a video with a handheld camera, but somehow that video became corrupted and you can't actually watch it.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, where have we heard that before?
Really?
Yeah, somehow Metro had bad luck with a video again. So the video that would have very clearly showed what they were doing when they were abusing her and using racist insults against her, calling her an animal, somehow became corrupted and disappeared. And also the video that they have also doesn't have the audio, so you can't hear those racist insults that they were making toward her.
Right. Now, there was another incident that I wanted to get to. There was a police brutality march over the death of a local man, and we have
We actually
Rusty.
had the poster.
Yeah, which one? Because there's been so many.
No, well, we're trying to get to Rusty, so
Yeah.
Rusty could tell his story. Now, this is a first-hand account, and this is from the person where it happened and who it happened to. So we're not relaying the story, and this will be a personal account. I mean, did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah. I mean, first we should explain
Good background.
what.
Well,
the
we talked
background
about
of it.
Tashii Brown.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
the Tashii Brown.
So
Right.
we've talked about this before. So if you watch the show, you know about Tashii Brown. He was murdered at Venetian by Kenneth Lopera, who's an officer with the LVMPD. He went because he was feeling he had some mental issues that he was having a problem with. He went to them and basically he said, "I need help. I think somebody's chasing me." And then shortly after that, well, they started treating him like a suspect instead of a patient is what really happened.
Mm-hmm.
So they tried to, they basically acted like they wanted to arrest him. And he didn't feel comfortable, so he took off and left.
Which
And
isn't
so-
illegal because he wasn't being detained. He
Right,
wasn't
they-
suspected
Right,
of
he didn't
any
do
crime.
anything.
He's
You could
free to
walk
leave
away.
at any time. Yeah.
Right. They had no reason to actually detain him, and they said that during their press conference that if he had survived this attack by Lopera, they wouldn't even have charged him with a crime.
But then they
So-
still referred to him as the suspect.
Yeah. So what happened is shortly after that, he actually did have somebody chasing him, and he was chased into the parking lot. Then he was tased at least 7 times, which that itself is against policy of Metro. So even if they had been justified in using a taser on him, that itself would not have that amount of tasers would not have been justified. And then he also hit him repeatedly he punched him and kicked him and that sort of thing. And then eventually he put him in a rear naked choke, which if you're familiar with MMA, it's a chokehold.
And this is a hold that is
Illegal.
barred. Yeah, it's illegal. It's
Yeah.
barred from use by LVMPD officers.
Yeah, so once again, even if it was justified, it shouldn't have been done because it's against Metro policy. And held him for over a minute and basically choked him to death.
All the while, with another officer on site saying, "Hey,
Right, they had
stop." This is
That's
another
enough.
officer.
when the other cops
Enough.
showed up. Yeah, they told him to stop and he refused. And that officer, the officer that was in charge that day, that was a sergeant, just got demoted because they said he didn't. Rather than just telling him, he should have physically stopped him, but they didn't. And even before he started choking him, there was 2 security guards there that were holding Tashii Brown down. So there was no imminent threat. And if you watch the video, which is on YouTube, Tashii Brown was not attacking anyone. He was not being aggressive toward Lopera. There was no threat whatsoever that justified attacking and killing him.
No, it was an out-and-out assassination. That officer went out with the sole intention of, at the time it was happening, was to kill someone.
Now, if you want to see the body cam footage and read more on this incident, it's, again, on nvcopblock.org.
Right, and this is why I always use the term, there's a police war against the people. Watch this video and tell me where I'm wrong, where there isn't a police war against the people when you see this happening. So...
Yeah, but so there is going to be a 1-year anniversary memorial and vigil that's going to be taking place on Mother's Day, which is the day that Tashii Brown was murdered, and that his mother found out that. That was her Mother's Day present, was finding out that her son was murdered by a cop. And this is the poster for it. I don't know how good you can see it from that distance, but it's May 13th. And after that, there were several protests, which is our guest here was at that protest and was arrested, and that's the story that he's going to tell you now.
So I was at the protest hosted by All Shades United, and we were protesting, and we walked, through the crosswalk. And we were blocking the street, and there was a drunk man that decided that he was going to try to, harass us. He's, like, harassing the kids, like, yelling at the parents, like, oh, this is child abuse, having your kids out here. And then he came over to this girl next to me, and he decided to put his hands on her. He picked her up and threw her onto the ground, and this woman was disabled, and she wasn't doing too well. And the guy, once he threw her on the ground, he had her kind of like in a chokehold, and he was reaching for his right pocket, and I saw him pull out a switchblade or like a large knife, and I hit him, and then, everyone kind of started to jump in because he was trying to attack her, and he wouldn't stop, and he kept trying to go after her specifically, and I got her arrested later that day, and when they asked me to change. They have this closet where you can't record people getting changed, so they decided that they could put their hands on me, and they need me in the back of my legs. And
this is the police officers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So the police officers need me in the back of my legs, trying to force me to take my shirt off, and and it was really unnecessary. And they were saying, oh, well, this person's a Black Lives Matter protester, rough them up, and, just slide, comments and, really, nasty things. And I was not, surprised, because I know the police is, they're racist, but, how open they are in the actual, correction facilities and stuff, they're really horrible, so.
Right now, but I always understood that wasn't the only incidents of abuse that you suffered at the hands of the police inside their facility, where they're entrusted to take care of you to make sure that you're not injured. They went out of their way. If you want to talk a little bit about that and explain that, what happened there.
Yeah. And then when I went to, talk to my attorney, they decided, when I was cuffed with my hands behind my back, they decided to push me down the stairs.
Wow.
Where I, you can't catch yourself either. So, you just have to take it. And
this was a peaceful protest that you were arrested at.
Yeah. I didn't expect, for me to, hit somebody. I've never put my hands on anybody before, but when someone's attacking someone, that's not okay. And when there's a knife pulled out, it's like.
Right. So when you were arrested, and then they went and they arrested the gentleman with the knife.
I heard he didn't get arrested.
Oh, he didn't get. So
no,
they
he
arrested
wasn't
the
putting cuffs. He actually was just walked to the side, and they just got his information, and he just walked off when he was, the one that was attacking.
The aggressor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't there, but I saw a video on Facebook of the incident. So if you guys are interested, you can find the video on Facebook. But it was a guy in a Make America Great Again hat, and he just focused on like the most vulnerable person in the group. Like as you guys are engaging in this civil disobedience, blocking the crosswalk on the strip, and he targeted her and just attacked her. And then I see people trying to pull him off of her. I saw you in the video, and it was just unbelievable watching the police's response, because they immediately went after the protesters, separated the man. He walked free, and then I remember seeing footage of like Stretch being arrested. Somebody from the new Black Panthers.
I believe there was
being
the
arrested
street medic also.
Yeah, there was a street medic. They arrested our, medic, and they're like, they were like tearing apart their bags, and then they also arrested one and brought him in, but they practically like arrested everybody like in the organization for like jaywalking, and then three other people got like assault charges and battery charges, and the victim actually got arrested too, which was like, crazy, because you're like, she needs like medical attention probably. She was just like, thrown around like a rag doll by this dude, and she had like bruises all up her arms. And when I got released, she was actually waiting for me and some other people to get released. But when I saw her, she was just all like bruised up. I'm like, I didn't realize how bad it really was, like, until I got out. But
yeah, so that's the thing is, on Metro's part, it's just really opportunistic. But you had a guy who came in and attacked a woman and was trying to pull a knife, and some people defended that woman. And the woman who was attacked and the people who tried to defend her were the ones that were arrested.
Yeah, you could tell that their objective wasn't to stop the assault or keep anyone safe. The objective was to break up the protest. To me, is what it seemed like.
And I actually, during another protest, Lieutenant Royd Rage, who was the cop that was in charge of that, I questioned him about that, and his explanation was, well, that guy really got pounded after he did that. And so the thing is, if you start a fight with somebody, the fact that you lose shouldn't absolve you from starting a fight.
And pulling a knife. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. It's a sad state of affairs. When you see this, you meet the victims of police brutality and people that go through the system and are abused. It's it's heartbreaking and disappointing. I know a lot of people. I deal with police brutality or anti-police brutality actions a lot. It's something I do, and I know it's not the focus of a lot of people's lives. They have these ideas about the way things work. I mean, television influences. They think sometimes that all the cops are Andy Griffith, or and they think, well, when you go into the precinct, they treat you this way. They don't. People would be surprised to see the violence that the officers in these inflict upon the other people that are being kidnapped by the police while they're there. My own experience when I was there, I was watching while they were doing a fingerprinting, and the gentleman who was being fingerprinted had a problem with it. I'm not sure exactly what the issue was, if they were just twisting his hand, because they put it on the reader and stuff, and they were handling because he balked and complained. 3 officers brushed him, plus the guy who was holding them, and threw him to the floor and started twisting his arms and legs behind him just for complaining and saying, like, you can't twist my arm that way. My hand doesn't turn this way when they were putting it on the scanner. That affected me more than anything else while I was in jail. Was seeing the violence against the people that they were doing. And it's, there's a ton of other cops there. They all witness it. They all agree with it because nobody said, hey, stop, man. The guy was just, like, treat him a little more gently. Don't bend his wrist.
Yeah, you
when
think
you put it on there, they were like, couldn't wait to beat the shit out of this fucking guy, and it was horrific.
Yeah, you think LVMPD is bad. It's, DOC, NDOC, the guards are a lot worse. I mean, I've had some personal experiences I won't get into, but when I was incarcerated, one of the worst things that I saw at High Desert was, I don't know if this guy was really trying to escape, but that's the narrative that they told, was it was an escapee, and they shot him dead, and then the medic car came out and, like, dragged the body, didn't just bring the body to, like, the medic ward, they, like, dragged the body all around the yard, all around, up and down through the rocks behind the vehicle, and left the blood there for all the inmates to see for weeks, just to, like, make an example out of this individual. So the people in the corrections department are far worse and more brutal than you could ever imagine.
Yeah, that's also where they were getting inmates to fight each other to justify shooting them with a shotgun. And there's a case, I did a story on Cop Block about that, where that's exactly what they did. Is they had 2 inmates that had previous issues, and they made sure they both went to the shower at the same time so they would fight.
Yeah, they do that all the time on purpose.
And then they sat up in their tower and they shot him with a shotgun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's against protocol. When you know that it's in the inmates' files who they have problems with and who they're not supposed to be around, and they're supposed to take measures to ensure that you never have an encounter with another inmate like that. But yeah, it happens very often because they have to be doing it on purpose. I mean, I doubt they're all mistakes, in my opinion.
Yeah, and going back to the Andy Griffith reference, that's one of the huge myths that people have. You always hear about, back in the day, the cops were so good and, all that stuff. But I think things have gotten they've gotten a little more violent, and there's a lot more cops, and it's a lot more widespread, and people are dealing with cops more. But, another thing, one of the first articles I did on Nevada Cop Block was called Were Your Father's Police Really Better Than They Are Today? And it was about how, like, back in the civil rights era, when they were, shooting people with fire hoses and beating people.
Sicking dogs.
Yeah, the dogs.
Yeah, that was cops the same as we have now. They weren't out recruiting special cops just to do that. That was just the regular cop.
Mm-hmm. It's just there's more cameras now, I think. Everybody has a camera in their pocket, so you see it more now. But
that's a huge part of it, is now you're actually seeing it, because now people have a camera in their pocket that they can record with. So
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, my ex-father-in-law, after he got out of the Army in World War II, he served, became a Pennsylvania state trooper. And, I didn't know him really that well. They lived in a different state. He was one of the most racist people I've ever met. I just couldn't believe, like, that this kind of racism existed. And
can we have his name? No, I'm just
kidding. He's dead. Thank God. He's burning nicely where he belongs. But he would tell me, and it was rural Pennsylvania, and he became a state trooper, and he used to tell me how much joy he would have riding along, looking for people of color to come and abuse. And he would, like, with great relish, he'd tell me these stories and laugh about how he'd take out the billy clubs and knock them in the head because they deserved it, whether they were doing anything. And it's just, recently also, I mean, you're like, oh my God, oh, that was back then. That was like in the 40s and early 50s. And I happened to go to some events, parties, house parties, where the owners were police officers, and they didn't know who I was or what I did. I was invited by a third party for dinner, and I heard the same goddamn stories from these guys, talking and laughing over beer. I just, nothing fucking changed.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing changed from the 50s, from my crazy ex-father-in-law, who was a monster, to a few years ago with the cops, when they get together and they are free to talk about what goes on. There's no difference in their attitude or their talking. So,
Yeah, they want to make sure there's only cops in the room. It's like,
right.
Like over the past couple of days, I think it was even yesterday, they had a thing where Trump was talking about immigration. He's like, is there any Mexicans in the room?
Yeah.
So, and I've been, my circle hasn't always been activists and people that I really agreed with. I grew up in a lower middle class white family, and there were times when people would look around and make sure there was no black people in the room and say some really racist shit. That really happens. So,
Exactly.
I mean, fortunately, I'm not around those kind of people anymore, but it's a reality. And there's even another article that I did that was really early on Cop Block. Is there was a police chief in Louisiana where they shot a guy on his own porch. They were chasing his son, and basically he told the cops. He argued with the cops about it, and they ended up shooting him. And this is like a 70-something-year-old guy. And there was a quote from the police chief who said, I want them to be afraid every time they see the police. And they had a policy there that chief had instituted where anytime they saw more than 3 or 4 black people together, they would stop them and try to detain them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that was a policy that the police instituted, that his officers followed through. And that was his explanation for it. He's, and then they're surprised when people run from them.
right.
Right. They want them to be afraid every time they see the police, but then you better not react to that fear.
No, it gives them the opportunity to shoot you in the back,
Yeah.
which they're not, opposed to doing, even if you're handcuffed.
Oh, yeah.
You could be handcuffed and running away, and they'll still unload on you. So, it's a real problem. So, which is why, I mean, there'll be representatives today from the anti-police brutality at the May Day March.
Yeah,
so,
we've got
which
some
is
great.
today at 5:30. The march goes off. Be here at 5, so you can participate. Get your shirts. Donation for those shirts would be greatly appreciated. They worked really, really hard making some really beautiful shirts this year. I didn't make them. You can see there's no ink on my hands. But the ones that did, I do appreciate. They put in a lot of effort.
There would be ink all over his hands.
There would be. There'd be none on the shirt.
And everything else within 5 feet.
Yeah. So, this is why they banned me from making shirts, by the way.
Yeah, they say Las Vegas May Day on them. They've got the fist and olive branches and the year the year on it as well. Also, we're going to have some buttons to hand out, water, of course. Got to stay hydrated on this march. But yeah, we do have some great speakers lined up.
Oh yeah, speakers.
Particularly, we talked about Tashii Brown, and his mother is going to be here speaking. And
Nissa, who was our guest on our second show, actually our third show, 2 weeks ago, will be here with Tashii Brown's mother. Trinita Farmer is her name. And she will actually be talking about and making a formal announcement of that Mother's Day memorial that they're doing.
There will also be, I think, one other, if not 2 other families of police terrorism. One that happened, was it in Bakersfield or Barstow? Well, her son was murdered, and she was recently awarded the largest settlement ever. She hasn't, of course, seen the money yet, but she was awarded it nonetheless, and she continues that fight today, and she'll be speaking with us at the march. And Nisa will be speaking, Stretch Sanders, And we also have the TPS committee through the Las Vegas Ariba Workers Center, speakers from there. We have a teacher with everything going on with teachers, across the nation going on strike for better wages and benefits and more funding for their students. It's really coming to a head here in Vegas as well. I wouldn't be surprised if teachers went on strike here. So we have a teacher speaking. She's going to talk about some of those issues. Yeah, great speakers. It's going to be a great time. It's not all focusing on the negative. There are some positive stories that will be told. And, come out and join us. It's going to be a great time. This is a celebration after all. It is a holiday. So come and enjoy the festivities.
Right. And I don't know if I mentioned before, Happy Earth Market, there'll be vendors. Happy Earth Market will be opened, and you'll be able to come in and browse and see all the crafts from the local artisans in our community. So come out and support them. They support us and help us in getting the word out and doing our show. If you like what you hear here and you're liking what we do, come and support the people that support us. And a Happy Earth Market is important. Come in and look at their stuff. They have a great line of programs also. Everything from yoga to drumming. There's just great programs. And you could find that at happyearthmarket.com, right?
Happy Earth Market, everything, and especially Happy Earth Market Podcast, which is Hemp Podcast.
Hemp Podcast. Hey, I get it. That's a joke.
Which confused me when I was trying to tag it because I was looking for Hemp Podcast.
Yeah.
But it's one word. It's Hemp Podcast.
But we will handle all your podcast production, and we do our own, so look us up.
Yeah, there we go, man. I like that plug. You got to do this every week now.
Cool.
So, anybody else we should give a shout out to that we're thinking? Hey, listen, Food Not Bombs, Chef Mindy, Vegan Meals by Mindy, donates consistently to Food Not Bombs. Great vegan food, so we appreciate that. Vegination, yeah, absolutely, Chef Donald. Man, thank you so much. Every Wednesday provides food for us so that we can distribute to people who are getting hungry or are hungry for our picnics. Love that. I don't know if there's anybody I've forgotten, because we get stuff in all the time from different areas and different people. Thank you so much. You really make a difference in the lives of the people that we share food with.
Not just businesses, but individuals as well.
Right.
There's UNLV students that come by, drop food off that they prepare themselves, vegan food. So all the volunteers, just want to say thank you. And if that sounds like something you would like to do, we could use all the help we can get. If you want to come out Sunday, Monday, or Wednesday to Huntridge Circle Park, all hands on deck. We could use some help.
Yeah, always. And I mean, you get to meet the wonderful people that we serve in the park, and all our kind and loving neighbors who support us, in special ways. So it'd be great. Go online and you can check us out. It's, Las Vegas Food Not Bombs?
It's Food Not Bombs
Las Vegas. Right, that was good. .com.
One giant word.
Yep.
Or .org, actually.
Or .org, right.
Yeah.
You come on there and you could contact us through there. So if you need serving times or if you want to make a donation, which we're always accepting. Look, we're a 501c3. We're self-funded a lot. Nobody collects a salary. Everything is volunteer. And best of all, there's really no leadership. There's no bosses. Everybody comes out and does what they see as necessary. So if you want to kind of make a donation, we take, we're always looking for food. We're always looking for cutlery or plates and stuff. And we have kind of specific needs that we need. So just contact us and we'll make the pickup.
And also, contrary to popular opinion or popular belief, you don't actually have to be homeless to go to Food Not Bombs. So if you are just somebody that doesn't have a lot of money and you are hungry, or you just have other priorities to spend your money on and you need food, you're welcome to come down to the park and share food with us.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, please do. I mean, if you just want to come down, no matter what your circumstances, right, and just hang out with us. No obligation to do anything except build community. We'd love to see you. So,
and we should also mention Force Trajectory Force Trajectory Project, which is forcetrajectoryproject.com, and
I think it's
Families
just
United for Justice.
Forcetrajectory.com. But Families United for Justice.
It's one or the other, but
Watch
Force Trajectory Project.
our old shows because we have it more together on that
If you
one
look that
with
up,
this.
if you look for that
Yeah.
for Force Trajectory Project on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll find the link there, and we'll put a link later when the show is being replayed. But you should check that out. That's Nissa's group, and that's who she helps a lot of families of survivors, and it's actually a national group. It's not just in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said earlier, they'll be doing the protest for Mother's Day, which they'll be discussing today during May Day.
And, hey, I haven't even been keeping track of the time, Nathan. I mean, are we going over? Are we good? We got time. All right.
I want
There we
to
go.
do a special thank you to the artist Recycled Propaganda. They made posters for May Day for us to put up in businesses. So I can't remember all the businesses that showed their support by allowing us to hang posters in their businesses, but we appreciate all you guys, the street team, everybody that handed out flyers. Come on down, get a shirt. We got shirts made, buttons.
Yeah.
And I think they're putting that wall up right now, so
Oh,
you should get down here before the
listen,
line starts.
This is a 40-foot wall. This is a 2-story wall that you'll be able to climb
For free.
for free.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a part of the community event, man. The community gives back. While I'm on it, listen, you guys watching the show, you watch the rebroadcasts, we give you links, but if there's a story you'd like to see us or an issue you'd like us to talk about that's, kind of in line in what we do, or if you have a story that you want to tell about something that happened, please contact us. We're part of the community, and we're trying to get the community involved. And if you don't have a voice, we want to give you that voice. We want to come on here and explore what happened and get your story out there.
And even if
So-
you can't physically come in to be a guest, message us at ACAB Radio on Facebook, and we can try to schedule something over the phone, on the air. Get your story out there. Definitely.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in this week. Please come down to the march and, support the community.
Yeah, you got a
Anybody
few
else?
minutes, go home, if you get out of work or if you're, come on down. For sure. Be good to see y'all.
All right. Thank you. Tune in again next week, same time.